welcome back to our newspaper segment, of course, where we serve you all the exciting headlines from major newspapers in Nigeria this morning. And we'll begin, as usual, with the Daily Trust. Interesting one there from the Daily Trust. Cash withdrawal limit. Reps insist on policy reversal. They've been calling for the head of the Apex Bank since the release of this new policy. It has also riders there. Wamako wants Emefiele sacked. Policy not politically motivated CBN, and 500 million pieces of notes printed. You will get the details of this if you get today's Daily Trust and open to page 4. And there on the cover, conspicuously, you'll find the photographs of the funeral prayer of the late Alhaji Shehu Malemi in Sokoto yesterday. He died on Monday in Cairo, Egypt. Ambassador Shehu Malemi buried in Sokoto. You'll find that on page 26. And to other stories directly below the name marks, we have military probes killings of civilians in Zamfara airstrikes. You'll recall that over 60 Nigerians or citizens were killed in a recent military airstrike in that part of the country. Morik accuses Lagos principal of forcefully removing students' hijab. You find that on page 6. MPAN, that is the Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria. NGE, the Nigerian Guild of Editors, urge Rights TV APC Campaign Council to sheathe sword. There has been war of words over the station's posture to its presidential candidate. To other stories on the front page, bandits raid Kaduna communities, adopt 37 in 3 days. Man, 75, lures minor with 100 naira and rapes them. And regional bias may lead to inconclusive polls in 2023, Bishop Ferron. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, let's take a look at some more stories on First News this morning. And this newspaper is also leading with the story about Naira redesign. We don't know quantity of new notes printed. This is according to the CBN. As Apex Bank's deputy governor says, I don't have exact figure. Don't want to make a mistake. We ordered for printing of 500 million pieces of notes, she later stated. You'd find other stories as well on First News. Why I resigned as Yoruba Nation leader. This is according to Akintoye. I'm aware of police military problems. This is according to President Muhammad Buhari. And Senate delays 2023 budget passage citing problems. Nigerians won't pay estimated billing for electricity if I am president. This is according to Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And then Lai Mohammed slams Atiku for promising to open borders if elected president. You'd find other interesting stories as well on the First News. The reps to investigate sanction unregulated online money lenders. Peter Obi left $155 million for his successor. That's according to Alex Oti. Then P Square storm Peter Obi campaign rally in Rivers. After joining celebrities with crashed marriage, Basketmouth begs fans to respect privacy. And right at the top, just on the left side of the nameplate, you see the story about 2023. I'll reveal my presidential candidate in January, says Wike. These are many more stories you find on the First News this morning.
Interesting. Moving on to leadership on Friday, we have there the major story at Lagos Luncheon, Rivers Rally. Tinubu Obi speak to issues, underscore governance plans. I will convert Nigeria's challenges to opportunities, says APC presidential candidate. And I will run government of youth, women, Obi. Don't waste time on Tinubu Atiku, tells PMB. And then you have pictures there of the Vice President Yomi Oshibajo condoling with family members of the late Ambassador Shehu Malemi during a condolence visit to their residence in Abuja. No amount of threat will stop 2023 election, FG vows. And to other stories there on the front page, illegal abortions, report vindicates army, fingers foreign NGO. You'll find the details of that on page 6. Kaduna emerges best performing state in World Bank's ANRIN project. And to other stories, 7 uni Abuja lecturers get 1 billion research grant. That's huge. I will unveil my presidential candidate in January. This is according to Wiki. Interesting developments there from Rivers State. Cash withdrawal limits, Naira redesign, not political, CBN. And Senate slam Daybreak for revoking Atala's OML 46 license. These are the major stories on the front page of Leadership on Friday.
On This Nigeria Today, you'd find the story about NAS halts 2023 budget passage over multiple errors. That story is on page 4. And some of the writers there you'd see says, blames executive for submitting faulty documents to reconsider clean copy for passage December 28. You'd find other stories as well, like this one that says Atiku's border reopening pledge unfortunate. That's according to federal government. Tinubu insists on fuel subsidy removal. Crude oil theft, CNS fingers Navy personnel. And then you see a picture there that looks like the Christmas celebrations are already underway as Ekiti State First Lady Olayemi Oyebanji celebrated with children at a Christmas party in Ekiti during the week. You see other stories as well. The one about commuters killed as 40-feet container crushes vehicles in Lagos. Well, that's quite a very tragic story, I must say. And you'd find on page 15 the story about Naira shortage, CBN to print additional 500 million Naira. These are the major highlights on This Nigeria.
Moving on to the Daily Times, it states the major headlines there read, National Assembly fails to pass 2023 budget as Senate blame executives for error in appropriation bill. Passage of 2022 supplementary budget finance bill affected, and reps to pass 2023 appropriation bill after Christmas. And to other stories there on the front page, Nigeria risks being blacklisted by global finance body over DSS allegation against Emefiele. As British Member of Parliament flails attempt by DSS to frame CBN governor for trumped-up terrorism charge. To other stories there, military on red alert as Nigerians seek peaceful Christmas on Sunday.
Okay.
Buhari receives PSC audit report assures of improved police welfare. And of course, you'll find there the major picture of, on the front page, you have Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, President Muhammadu Buhari, and Acting Chairman, Police Service Commission, Honorable Justice Clara Bata Ogumbi, as well as the Commissioner, AIG Lawal Bala, and Commissioner Barrister Remy Mom during the presentation of the 2021 annual report and proposed 2023 budget of the Police Service Commission at the State House in Abuja yesterday. And to other stories, House of Reps to Buhari orders CDS to flush out terrorists in Kaduna, Ebonyi. And to other story, cash withdrawal limits, CBN says decision without political consideration. These are the major stories on the front page of the Daily Times.
Okay, let's quickly move on. Now, stories on the business day talk about cost of Christmas meal in Nigeria rises to 28%. Prices of rice, chicken, cooking gas, others soar. You'd find other stories as well. Dangote refinery nears completion, faces oil output subsidy hurdles. And then there's an explainer on page 31. 5 reasons petrol tanks are drying up in Nigeria. And then on page 4, there's an interesting story about skit making booms in Nigeria amid rising hardship. And then on page 4, what you need to know about Lagos Blue Line Rail. These are the major highlights on the business day.
And that's it on the highlight. We now have joining us in the studio, the editor, 21st Century Chronicle, Alhaji Nuruddin Abdullah. It's a pleasure to have you join us.
Good morning.
Too many issues making it to the front pages this morning, but one of them has remained prominent, which is the outcome of the CBN, showing up at the House of Rep over repeated invitations. And it is saying here that cash withdrawal limit rep insists on policy reversal, according to the Daily Trust. And Wamako wants Emefiele sacked, policy not politically motivated. And the CBN also disclosed that it has ordered for 500 million pieces of this note. What's going on with the House of Rep? Why the particular interest on this policy? What's your take?
I think, like many Nigerians, look at the hurried policy by the CBN, the way it was initiated and now being implemented. You know, they suspect foul play, that some politicians have been targeted. Nothing wrong with the redesigning of the banknotes. There is nothing wrong with the cash withdrawal limit. We have been with it, like the lady yesterday explained in the House of Reps. But why the rush? Why the shots? Like they mentioned, other countries in the UK, they just produce pound sterling with the new king. But they are not saying by January or February, banknotes bearing the late queen's picture is no longer acceptable. So that's the issue. From time to time, for security reasons, to deal with those engaged in counterfeiting or whatever, you redesign. But allow the system to take care of itself. But now you're saying by January this, if you bring this money, and even the new note is not even available at the banks. And you're saying that cashless policy shouldn't, adoption of cashless policy should not punish Nigerians. Or if you are targeting Mr. Sunday, then there are better ways of dealing with him. Don't let other Nigerians who are innocent suffer for the misdeed of one person or some group of individuals. So that is it. And there are so many questions. If you look at the, even though I think they did it behind closed doors, out of it. Now they have ordered, how much are we spending? You are accusing Honorable Gudaji Kazore of getting presidential approval for a committee to investigate stamp duty, whatever. Almost the same way the Gudaji Kazore got his approval, it was the same aperture used by Emefiele to get approval for his money redesign and what have you.
But the law stipulates that that is the process for
we are not, the president has that powers, you understand, just to appoint Gudaji Kazore's committee and what have you. But what we are saying here, look at the wider implications. Why is CBN latching on its act? The CBN has a board headed by the Minister of Finance, Planning and National Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning. We have a Minister of Finance, National Planning, what have you. They don't even have a card say. The president is not an economist. He has an economic advisory board. When Mr. Emefiele sneaked his papers or what have you, he took it direct to the president. The president being not an economist, the president who has a robust ministry, 3-in-1, finance, national planning, and budget, one. At least, courtesy demands that, okay, minute that into the ministry. Let's have your take on this. Or he has an advisory council. He has the like of this Lagos economist, Ruane, but none was done. He just stamped his approval. When the minister was asked and look at the conflict in the government by the National Assembly, he said, no, I think this question should be better answered by the minister, by the CBN governor, because we are not informed. You are redesigning the Naira. They have ordered 500 million Naira. At what rate? How much? The CBN, whatever its act said, it doesn't supersede constitutional provisions. No dime should be spent outside appropriation. The CBN is not Julius Berger or Dangote.
But they argued that, before Zainab comes in here, they argued that basically they have running contracts for printing of notes. And what they have done with the Nigerian Printing and Minting Company is to say for this batch of the printing and draw, we'll rather have them in the new denomination rather than the subsisting contract. So it does appear as if we are still spending within whatever they have contracted, even though they had not mentioned
the national parliament must know, because there is a contract change. Even the president, whatever dime he is going to spend, that's why we have the environment. He has just sent a supplementary budget. So all these things look fishy. That some people want to have some billions as send away and send off gift and what have you. We are printing 500 million. At what cost? In 2020, if I'm not mistaken, they said that they printed 2.5 billion banknotes. At what cost? About 50 billion. It has economic implication.
That's right.
Like Chifalana said, they don't have such rights. If you are giving money to buy, let's say, a glass of water, then later you believe that you don't need the glass of water. You need gala. There is a change, and that's what the National Parliament, I'm not a lawyer, should know. But that's even the more reason why the CBN governor is somewhere. Is it he's sick, right?
Yeah.
Well,
okay, may God.
He's on treatment. Well, you mentioned being fishy, and they're saying they printed 500 million pieces of notes. Initially, the deputy governor said she doesn't know the exact figure, and it looks like there is a breach in communication, or some will say, well, it looks that there's something wrong somewhere.
Why is the CBN governor run away from the parliament? In serious countries, you can't do something like this and go away with it. You understand? Look at the inconsistency. That is why Nigerians are worried. Why these months, less than 2 months to the election? You understand?
yeah.
He postponed his visitation and whatever, because apparently it simply means that even at the CBN, all these things, are saddled with one man. And the moment he is sick, he is abroad, he's running away from whatever. Now nobody can even offer explanations. Look at the question we should ask: how much are we spending in printing 500 million banknotes? Let's look at is it worth it now? If we don't redesign the money before elections, is Nigeria going to collapse? So, all these things maybe they are targeting, and there's nothing surprising. This is the same man. He's our Chancellor of the Exchequer. But he picked a form, a presidential nomination form of the ruling party. He even had the guts to go to court to challenge those who are going to stop him, saying that he didn't break any law of the... And that's even why even INEC, remember at that time, saying that the sensitive materials are no longer safe with the CBN because he is apparently partisan. So there are certain things that you don't even need outright laws to know that they are right or wrong.
Moving on to, I would like you to take the next 1 minute thereabout to speak to the late Ambassador Shehu Malemi, who was buried yesterday in Sokoto. What sort of a man was he by public record?
Wow. The late ambassador, like popularly called the Prince of Sokoto, I interviewed him twice. So many things, one elder statements, and from his public records, very well educated. I think one of the most educated individual from the Sultanate, going by his CV. And when you sit with him, you understand that they have seen yesterday, they have seen today, and they can project what happens tomorrow. And what he lived a life with very few or less controversies, you understand? And he's a reservoir of knowledge. When issues come up, he'll give you perspective. There's what happened during the First Republic, Second Republic, during the military days. I remember the last interview I had with him was during that vaccine, right, with South Africa, when we had diplomatic row with South Africans. And he gave us a perspective that there was a time he got there with General Abacha as the head of state, and they insisted that the head of state must be inoculated. And they defy all diplomats, and the head of state has to come back. What if you? So I think he was one of the few elder statesmen that we have, particularly from this part of the country, who have been part of all our political developments, and he's equally good in the field of economy, He has invested so much in so
do we still have, from everything you have said, in your own perspective, do you think we still have ambassadors that are cut from the same cloth?
Yeah, but very few of them, particularly those that remain non-partisan. That's one thing with him. He doesn't identify with. That gives you the ability to speak truth to power. Whatever you talk, people will respect you because you are talking from a point of view of neutrality. Neither APC, PDP, very few of them, very few of them. And in his own case, like I say, he's one of the most educated princes from Sokoto Sultanate, from the Sultanate of Sokoto. Look at his CV. He was at Oxford. He almost grew up in Buckingham Palace. So he has been part of our. And look at him. About 85, he was still active until his untimely death. So we have very few of them, who can speak their mind without looking who is.
Whose earth is gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So with this caliber of people leaving Earth and the caliber of others that we're seeing, here and there, what does this say for the future of a country like Nigeria subsequently?
So fortunately, we have very few, with some of them exiting like this, very few number of elder statesmen, who are not into, they can tell truth to power, like Mr. Sunday said, because they are not looking for any contract. And again, they are well positioned educationally. They have experience, So they can tell you, no, this is how it should be done. Because it's also time we did it this way, and this is the result we got. But unfortunately, we have elder people nearly his age. But the way they massage, they patronize every government in power. And there are certain age you reach, you don't need anything. By 70, for instance, what do you need? You don't even food. It's not everything you take. You don't dress to impress anybody. So at that time, you should be free.
That's right.
But unfortunately, you see people at that age, they are still pushing one contract or the other, massaging the egos, being used as like one of the current ministers said when President Obasanjo was about to be impeached by the during the second time, some elder statesmen, I won't mention names, some of them are late, went and intervened. In the columnist, he's not a minister. He said that some elder statements Nigeria will be better off with some elder statesmen lying instead.
Interesting perspective there on the late Ambassador Shehu Malemi. I hope that this country gets to a point where we begin to replace these people. I remember somebody writing shortly after we had lost Stephen Keshi and one of the popular Super Eagles coach, I remember his name later, that we seem to be losing too many good men. And the ones we want to learn in states early seem to be defying all odds. They go, they get treatments abroad, and they come back strong. Funny. We move on to other issues that seem to have made it to the front page. And one of them would be military saying it will probe killings of civilians in Zamfara. And you wonder, you ordered the strike from whatever intelligence that was available to you. Who is the military supposed to be probing itself, or the Human Rights Commission now rising up to say, to calling them to explain? How do you appropriate and reprobate at the same time? And this is surprising, and this is coming in the wake of the House of Reps ordering Buhari, asking him to order the CDS to flush out bandits from Kaduna. And I think, is it this kind of order that pushes them to just flush out everything or to engage in some, because the casualty rate this time was rather way too much.
Yeah, you know, first, the military has internal mechanisms of probing itself, or rather probing its officers and men for issues like this. But more importantly, I think if you want maybe results, maybe the parliament can do it.
As we saw in the case of the United States.
Yeah, exactly. The parliament, but if at all we have a serious parliament, you know. Then the incident actually is very pathetic. You know, we have a run in Borno, you remember? We had a pilot, he mixed up the coordinates.
And just
took a civilian time. And if, like the case in Zamfara, you know, the number of casualties from what was reported, you know, was much, particularly on the bandits, which is a good development. But unfortunately, there have been about 13 soldiers.
Over 60 civilians.
You know, about, so in one village they say they bury over 60. So you can imagine that brings before this question of the professionalism of our troops. You understand? You can, was the pilot overexcited? You know, he was even killing his colleagues. And, you know, they move into, I think, from a non-military perspective, they were gathering, they were massing in one place, right, for a revenge. And the pilot came. He did the sorties, as they call it. And some of them moved into the village. So I think when the bandits are fleeing into a village, the airstrike was not the best option. You already have men on ground. That's what they should just move in. You know, they will be arrested or neutralized like chickens, but not use bombs, you know, to attack fleeing terrorists in a crowded environment. So I think we had run, you remember. Not only that, most recently, was it early this year, we had another incident in Yobe. If you'll keep on counting. So that brings to fore this question of the military professionalism, particularly our Air Force. What's wrong with the reading of the coordinates? Mistakes do happen. We do have collateral damage. But when you keep on repeating mistakes over and over again, then certainly something is wrong. You understand? And that is why the military, I hope, they will do a very thorough job to find out what exactly is the problem. Is it fatigue from the side of the pilots? Or what? You understand? These things are supposed to be, and we hope that after the probe, you know, adequate measures should be taken to nip further incidents in the boat. You remember what happened in Yobe as well, when military personnel are now turning into armed robbers. or is it fatigue as well in the same theater of operation in the Northeast, that a young soldier would just open fire on his superior and whatever. So, you know, mental health, what is there, what do they call it, are they overstaying? So all these things need to be, excuse me, adequately taken care of, you know, to avoid when a young officer, when a young soldier who has spent not up to 2 years in the army, you know, shot dead a brigadier general. It's a great loss. These soldiers that were killed, you know, they were trained. So do you know how much we lost? Apart from even on the country, we invested so much on them. And you know, they are just being killed anyhow, and particularly by friendly fire, then something is wrong. And we have to really look at these things. We have to really look at the mental health of those that that fly our fighter jets, you know, and whatever, because they will do something. A day will come, they will fire the convoy of the chief and whatever. And you know what that means?
Well, we hope that that day doesn't.
That's why we have to nip it in the bud.
Hopefully. So many questions there in the minds of Nigerians on what could have gone wrong. I mean, Nuruddin has said it all. Is it wrong coordinates? Do we need to look at the mental health of fighter jets? Do we have people sending signals that are inaccurate? And what's the time frame between the signal and the time of action? What's the lapse period? And several other things. Are these some sort of subtle protests? We hope that the military internal process answers this question. And someday we also hope that this report will be available for public scrutiny, you know, to restore confidence in the army. And if you like, perhaps it is the time that the parliament picks up this repeating reoccurrence of events, you know, to engender public confidence and be sure that the military is held to the fire with regards to doing what is right. This is the much that we can bring to you from Nuruddin Abdullah. We wish we could keep him here longer, but time is not our friend. I want to thank you very much for coming. Incidentally, it's not yet Christmas.
I know. I have to go with my with my God. You know, I'm here fully prepared.
All right. Those are expensive now.
Hopefully, we will match your expectation, banter for banter. Thank you very much for making it to the studio.
My pleasure.
We will see you again before the new year, hopefully.
Right, thank you, Sean.
And do have a delightful Yuletide.
Thank you.
This is where we draw the curtain on newspaper review. We'll see you at the top of the hour with more programming. Please stay with us.
But in a situation where you find that they look like the same,
not necessarily tribal or regional.
but I have said that